so this is my second What If movie, because I did do a Christmas special a couple months ago, but this is What If Deku was a Todoroki the movie 7K sub special. Sub K sub special, man. And I didn't put the special in the title. I might actually do that later on, but right now at least, while I'm recording this, it ain't there, but whatever. So my editor will go over this video, but overall, guys, basically this is my 7K sub special. Now I didn't do much, subscriber special videos, but I'm gonna start doing those. And when I reach about maybe 10K, eventually, maybe like a couple of years, to maybe 2 years, maybe I might reach 10K, and I will do a barrage of about 6 or 7 video pretty much specials, somewhat like, I don't know, a vlog video or reaction video. And I am still working on our reaction video. It's gonna be at least like about 15 to 20 minutes long. It's gonna be basically me reacting to my childhood. It's gonna be a series of me reacting to my childhood TV shows and seeing my thoughts on them, and seeing how well good they actually were, and if they were corny or they just sucked. So yeah, so I hope you guys enjoy this video. Hope you guys like and subscribe. I mean, this is a pretty long video, so get your snacks, sit down, relax, put your headphones on, and get ready for this at least hour-long video, or maybe 30-50-minute long video. Now, let's start the story off with Deku's, family legacy. Deku's family and how he would be set in the Todoroki family bloodline. So we start the story off with this universe's pretty much Inko and Asashi. They don't exist. If it's simple, they do not exist. They're not really a prominent factor in this what if. So basically, for this universe to balance out, or this timeline, since it would be a different universe other than the main canon universe or main canon storyline of My Hero Academia, the canon one, since Deku's parents would never met, and Asashi would never be born in this universe, Deku somehow, his soul in this universe had to be balanced out and put into some sort of family. So it would go to, the Todoroki family, as Deku would be born into a very lackluster family, or very, let's just say, very brutal family. Now, Deku would be born the twin brother of Todoroki. Now, Todoroki was the first one to come out, as Deku's new mother, or pretty much Todoroki's mother, would have gone into labor again, or would start to contract right after Todoroki was born, as pretty much, Endeavor would have known that she did have twins. Now basically, Deku would have been pushed out, and Deku would have came out with bright aqua like hair that would sparkle in some different lights, or in different light shadings it would sparkle like it had glitter in it. So Deku's hair would be like an aqua light blue, with a little bit of a glow tint on it, as his roots of his hair would be like a very dark midnight blue. But overall, Deku would have the classic Endeavor, normal type of, basically, dark bluish eyes. Basically, Deku would be born the twin brother Todoroki, and he would have a similar power of Todoroki. As they were growing up, eventually when their quirks manifested, as Deku and Todoroki would be trained under the same wing, or very brutally each other, because Deku's father, or new father, pretty much Endeavor, knew that Deku was very powerful, just like his brother, as they would be raised and trained under the same circumstances brutally, especially Deku, as Deku's powers would have been near and would have the potential to be godlike even. So Deku's powers are some of the Todoroki and his family's powers, with him having base ice abilities. So Deku's base abilities, or base quirk, is very similar to Todoroki's ice quirk, but just even stronger. Now basically, the combined fusion of the ice and fire quirk, Todoroki has a clear edge in overall balancing out his quirks. Other than Deku, Deku's quirk It's kind of like a, let's just say, Sub-Zero type of complete ice control power. Now, to put it simple, Deku's powers are very similar to Iceman's abilities, but Deku also has another fire side. Now, Deku's abilities are very powerful. Now, Deku has a clear, incredibly big, pretty much undefense, or pretty much a big weakness to fire attacks. Put it simple, Endeavor, a single like huge blast from Endeavor, about enough to melt like a steel door, maybe that much of heat could very much literally burn or put Deku into a coma type shock because Deku's heat receptors are off the charts. To put it simple, Deku feels heat way easier than other people. Now Deku isn't like super, vulnerable to heat, like even a hot room or anything like that, but fire attacks or fire quirks can put a really big dent on his body, similar to Dabi's powers. Dabi, as in I think, one of the oldest sons of the Todoroki family. Basically, Dabi, with his powers, he's vulnerable to his fire abilities, so that's why he has all these marks on his body. Deku is similar the same way, but Deku's ice abilities are able to counteract that. Now, Deku has fire abilities. He has a aqua-like blue flame ability. Pretty much, his flames have electric sparks in them as well that make a really flashy sparkle effect when he uses fire. And his fire can be used on any part of his body. He isn't limited to the left or right side of his body with each quirk. His quirk is able to spread equally throughout his body on his left or right side, as he has more control and more power in his ice quirk other than his fire. It's not equal like Todoroki's. So pretty much Deku's ability, his ice powers are on par, or even maybe be more powerful than Iceman's abilities. In the Pin Spectrum, if you don't know how powerful Iceman is, he is a Omega level mutant. One of the mutants that could possibly destroy Earth, because Omega level mutants are mutants that are literally classified as in world breaking or world killing type of strength. Like Magneto. In theory, Magneto can throw the Earth off its axis because of the electromagnetic field on Earth or around Earth. And basically, to simple, Deku, if he really goes all out, he could eradicate the whole human race if he lets all his power loose. Iceman can control and freeze the air around him, making ice constructs or shooting ice blasts. So Deku does the same thing. He doesn't generate ice from his body like Todoroki does. He makes the air around him or the water molecules in the air and freezes them to make constructs, buildings of ice, or even make sentient type ice, or not sentient, but pretty much movable ice creatures like pretty much ice golems like Iceman can do, and even grow his body into ice-like constructs. So Deku's able to pretty much encase his body into a very, very, very more or less the strongest version or the strongest type of ice. He can pretty much encase his body in that ice, or turn his whole body, change his molecules, or basically pretty much be his body, his flesh, bone, everything. He can change it to pure ice. A very, very, very strong version of ice that can even go on par or even break titanium just by punching it into a wall. So Deku is incredibly strong, and maybe even stronger than the Marvel Universe's Iceman. Now, Iceman's been able to do stupid, crazy stuff, like freeze over the Marvel Universe's version of HE double hockey stick, and that burns with the fires of HE double hockey stick. So he's able to freeze hell flames, and that's an incredible feat. Because hell flames are able to burn through most of anything, even in some continuity or some multiverse stuff. Hell flames have been able to slightly burn or melt, vibranium. Now, basically, for Deku's abilities, he's able to pull off, normal Todoroki-like stunts, like make huge ice constructs or huge ice glaciers, but he's able to do that on a bigger scale, not being limited to the other side of his body. So he's able to do crazy stuff like shoot ice balls, shoot ice shurikens, and make ice swords and stuff like that, and be really creative with his ice abilities and super flexible with his ice abilities. And he's also able to, the durability factor with his ice form, as he has an ice form like Iceman. Now, pretty much, Deku's fire abilities are kind of weaker than Todoroki's. So Todoroki does have an edge over Deku, so their powers are kind of limited out to be equal with each other. Now, Deku's fire abilities are way weaker than Todoroki and Endeavor's abilities, but strong enough to take down somebody in a fire out. Now, he's somewhat the same level as Endeavor, but with his ice abilities that are more powerful than his other fire abilities, it's more or less a little bit weaker. But since Deku's ice abilities are way more stronger, he doesn't have the limitation of other people with ice quirks, meaning that Deku can't get frostbite if he uses his power too much, unless he uses his ice power in his human form. But if he goes into his ice form and uses his ice abilities or cryokinesis, he's basically invulnerable to any type of frostbite or any type of exhaustion from his quirk. Now, he can only hold his ice form for about an hour tops. After an hour, his body starts to get severe frostbite. I mean, his body starts to deteriorate. Like, his body starts to turn to black crust. Like, you know how your fingers, if you climb mountains for a long time, your fingers get frostbite. When they turn or crust over with black, at that point, you have to cut them off. And that can happen to Deku's whole body if he doesn't stay or doesn't get out of his ice form in the next like 20 minutes or so pretty much 15 minutes of him using all his power or being in his ice form for about an hour. Now, Deku's abilities with his fire abilities, he's able to actually redirect and catch lightning with his abilities. So he's able to react at lightning speeds, just like Todoroki, because Todoroki was able to go toe or dodge Black Shadow and also pretty much, Denki's electric attacks. And Denki's electricity is on par with normal real-world electricity. And that's able to pretty much catch up to a crazy amount of speeds. Just look at how fast lightning bolts hit, how fast electricity or lightning bolts move. Now, basically, Deku's and Todoroki's abilities are different, but they do balance out. So they are about the same equal levels of strength in terms of fighting each other in their own way. Now, Deku in canon does look exactly like he did in canon. He just has the exact, similarly, uncannily, the exact same body build as Todoroki, just a little bit slimmer and more perfected for athletic and jumping and flipping type moves. Now, Deku's pretty much quirk, I think I explained it good enough. So, Deku's very powerful. So, we move our story with Deku being raised somewhat exactly like Todoroki, him being trained under Todoroki, them being trained right next to each other, them actually being pretty good brothers, until when they turn 13, as they would be separated to be trained separately to become as strong as they possibly can without being brothers to each other, without, basically fighting alongside each other. Now, Deku would be trained by other professionals away from his brother or his twin brother, as he would also be pretty much he would also somewhat find a way to sneak out of his training, unlike Todoroki, to actually communicate with his other siblings, like pretty much Nokia. I don't remember his name. I'll put a picture up right here. It's right him, right in the middle, right next to Todoroki in the back of the picture. Yeah, so him. So, basically, it's simple. Deku would have had somewhat the exact same childhood as Todoroki. He would also be beaten by his father, the same thing as Todoroki, and would be abused just like the rest of his family. Eventually, one day, as Deku and Todoroki, before they were separated, as Deku and Todoroki were going in the kitchen to get something to eat, as they would have seen their mother. As their mother would have liked Deku just a tad bit more because of his eyesight would be all over his body on the outside. Now, Deku would be confused on what's happening, but pretty much, Deku's mother, pretty much Todoroki's mother, would have done the same thing by throwing boiling hot water on them. As Deku would have dodged out the way, his forearm being caught by the boiling water, as he would have been standing next to Todoroki, as Todoroki's fire side would have been burned by the hot water, and Deku's arm or forearm would have been burned with hot water, being covered in like a red rash. As his hand would be similar to, let's say, like Red Hulk's skin complexion, or near Todoroki's burn mark skin complexion, all around his hand evenly, and would fade away near his elbow. So Deku was kind of trying to, heal this over time and time, trying to cryo freeze it with his ice abilities as he was still, feeling the pain from the boiling hot water, as it wouldn't do much except make the skin tone of the red, burn lighter than Todoroki's burn on his face. But other than that, it would just be, still a burn. As Todoroki and Deku would still be separated a couple years later as he gets switched back to canon, as they would be about 16 years old, as they would have reunited as they would get ready for the pretty much entrance exams, as they would be recommended, as they would do the recommended test, Deku and Todoroki being incredibly equal in the test, as they would use their ice abilities somewhat exactly the same to pass on the test. Now Deku and Todoroki would pass the test, and pretty much Deku was talking to Todoroki and asking him about how father's been acting, as he would have been, as he would have not seen Endeavor for the last year of his life before they went and reunited. As pretty much Todoroki was saying that pretty much fathers became brutal and overall overbearing. As Daku would have asked Todoroki, how's life been treating you? As Todoroki would have scoffed and just gone on about how his life has been okay since, Endeavor's been able to leave him alone for a short amount of months. But over time, he's been longing to meet his family, and especially Deku, as Deku would be his twin brother. And somehow, some different way, they would feel like they were connected, like they had to be near each other. And sometimes, in some different times of the day or nights, they would even be able to see each other in their dreams, such as communication telepathically, something uncanny like that. But I'm not gonna go into that later on in the video. Now, pretty much Deku and Todoroki would have gone to UA the next day after they would have passed the recommendations, as they would have sat down next to each other, then mind their own business, as Deku would have been the same type of personality as Todoroki, but since Deku would be able to meet up with his mother and he would have, same type of talks with his mother as Todoroki would have, basically Deku being more open to his fire powers and especially his ice abilities more, because his ice abilities would be more powerful than Todoroki's, but his fire wouldn't be near as powerful as Todoroki's full potential. Now, Deku, with his pyrokinesis, I didn't really go much in the detail about his pyrokinesis, but it is able to near what burn or easily melt through titanium or solid steel. So it's pretty strong. And it's also able to catch lightning, so it's pretty fast pyrokinesis as well. So his pyrokinesis is faster than Todoroki's, but it's not as strong as him. So his fire powers are able to move as fast as lightning, but they aren't as hot as Todoroki's flames. They are able to burn through steel or titanium, and that's a really high burning point, but not as fast. And they're not as, destructive as Todoroki's flames or Endeavor's flames. And he can only use them in small and very fast, like very pinpoint directions or blasts of fire. So the biggest flames he's been able to make is about enough to engulf like a small room, or enough to completely engulf, like, let's say maybe about like a block of street road. But overall, other than that, he's never been able to reach the same potential or strength with his fire abilities that Endeavor has been able to pull off, or Todoroki has been able to pull off with his fire abilities. Because Todoroki barely trained his fire side, but even without his fire side being trained, Deku was near the same strength as his fire. In terms of speed, he trumps over Todoroki's fire, but overall, not really in power. Now, Deku and Todoroki would have just mind their own business, and the pretty much quirk assessments would have started with pretty much, well, Azawa asking Deku to go up. As Deku with this cannon would have grabbed the ball, and since Deku had this ice ability, he was trying to figure out the perfect way to throw this, as he would have thrown it using his fire abilities to propulsion it into the air. As you know, the third action or the third, law of Newton. Every action has an opposite and equal reaction. And basically, he just propulsion the blast forward with using kind of explosion type, pretty much explosion type fire move, as he would have blown or ignited the air between the ball, with allowing the small space of air between the ball and his hand, blowing it up and throwing it as hard as he can. And since he would be physically fit, the same strength or same physical, without his quirk, the same physical strength as Todoroki, he would be able to throw the ball hard enough to get near the same or even higher, by like a centimeter higher than Todoroki's original throw in canon. For the long jump, Deku would just ice over it, and for the pretty much race, Deku would bolt past everybody by pretty much torpedoing himself like a human cannonball, with his fire abilities pushing him forward, kind of like Human Torch flies. Now Deku can fly, but his fire abilities, when he uses it all around his body, it does give him a higher risk of burning his skin. So Deku rarely uses his fire abilities all over his body, like Human Torch. So he barely uses it like that. Now what happens doing this? Deku would have gotten ready, and for the grip test strength, Deku would get the same score as Todoroki. So overall, Deku would get about let's say second or third place. After that, Mineta wouldn't be expelled though, because it would just be pretty much, and Azawa would do the same thing about you know tricking or pretty much telling everybody that they had to try their best or they're going to get expelled if they get last place. But overall, it was just a test to really see how strong they all were in their own right. As Deku and Todoroki would have walked off, basically them walking off. Now, since Deku is no, never mind. I was gonna introduce somebody from Class 1B in the story, but since Deku is in the story, and he's just the only thing is just that he's just the brother of Todoroki, nothing really changes. So we get skipped to the next day as they all go back to school, as they eventually just chilling over a normal type of day, as Todoroki and Deku sit together at lunch just eating, and eventually we get switched to in class as they get interrupted in class by hearing thumps in the hallway, as they get shown All Might, as All Might introduces the class and tells them that he is here for the combat training, as everybody is told to get ready in the pit on their hero costumes, as he presses a button, opening up cases in the walls that show hero costumes, as Deku's hero costume would be somewhat not really similar to Todoroki's suit, but enough for him to be unique compared to his father and Todoroki's powers, or their suits. Sorry. Now Todoroki would have the same suit like in canon, but Deku's suit would be different. So this would be Deku's hero costume, similar to the, I guess, future or pretty much younger version of Iceman's pretty much suit. Somewhat, this would be more of a bigger scale or like a full body scale of his suit. But other than that, pretty much his suit. Okay, so the technicality of Deku's suit, let's get into that. Now, Deku's suit is somewhat kind of built in terms of pretty much, how it's made to pretty much help with his fire abilities when he uses his fire quirk. Now, his fire quirk does have limitations on his body and does put, type of stress or burn on his body if he uses it too much. Now, or he uses it all over his body. Now, Deku's body and his pretty much belt, with advanced technology, it was able to pretty much pit these small micro pellets about as big as a normal pellet. Pretty much, if he pops one, it overall gives him a little bit of a not adrenaline shot, but more of a modified version of like a kind of, I guess, a game healing pack, as he only could take one about between he could take one between each hour. So if we take one like 20 minutes after, it can cause like a seizure or even overall like pretty much overpower his quirk and just make it go haywire. Like let's say he just starts to shoot ice balls everywhere and like freezes somebody solid and kills them. So pistol like that, Deku's pretty much power or this suit, this pellet, it pretty much just heals him from like a burn mark, or if he like internally burns himself with his quirk, or outside burns himself. But most like he's gonna burn himself outside. He also has ointment in the back of the belt of the suit that can help with that as well, if he uses his fire abilities. Now Deku is more durable to his fire abilities or fire attacks in his ice form, and his ice form looks exactly like it would in this picture, actually just with a lot more spikier hair. Now Deku also in this suit, he does have treads at the bottom of his feet on the boot of the suit that are just miniature, but a lot of them enough so he can, slide or skate on ice with his, boots of the suit. Now, also, the suit does have a pressurized heat and cold, pretty much pressurizer. So the suit basically, if Deku uses too much ice power and overloads his body or his quirk, the suit would instantly start a heater program to try to cool down Deku's body, and not heat up Deku's body. And if Deku uses too much fire, the suit will cool down Deku's body by trying to, pretty much cool him down. And how the suit gets his heat is it absorbs heat from Deku's flames or ice attacks each time he uses the suit when he has his quirk on, or when he uses the suit, or he uses his quirk as the suit's on him. It pretty much stores that extra excess heat or cold for later use to balance out Deku's body. But it's not like a big or cool heater. It's kind of like a fan. It's kind of like a fan strapped to your chest, like a small little fan you can buy like like a small little fan you can buy at like Disney World for like freaking 50 or 20 freaking bucks. Like dang. But overall from there, pretty much Deku Deku's suit is mainly just built for, style and classic, design, but also for technicality use and to balance out his body. Now, after that, Deku would have gotten ready, and he would look somewhat like this, and he would have gotten ready, and everybody would have come in Deku's suit alongside Todoroki, and basically, Deku would his personality I didn't really hit more at this and more Deku's personality is somewhat like, let's say, kind of like Gohan's personality, cool and calm, but also still somewhat nerdy, but still is out there. Not exactly like Gohan's personality, but pretty simple. Deku has more of a, let's say, Leonardo personality. He is cold. He's not cold, but he is precise. He thinks through stuff like a leader, but he also has a quirky and cocky side that he thinks is sometimes better than other people. So Deku does have a cocky and arrogant side, but also a calm and cutting side that is a leader worthy or leadership worthy side. So Deku sometimes is very thought through technician and type of fighting and skill like Deku is in canon, but Deku also has incredible levels of pretty much just thought, but also he is kind of cocky, so that's one thing. But overall, Deku would have gotten ready, and everybody would have gotten teamed up with their partners. Deku still being teamed up. Sorry. Okay, so Deku would be teamed up with Chaku, and Todoroki would be teamed up with the same team he would as in canon. So that Todoroki's fight wouldn't change. Now Deku would have been teamed up with Chaku alongside or against Bakugo and Ida. But Bakugo would have a sort of setup because he would think that Deku thought he was better than him because he would just be the son of Endeavor. So he wanted to teach Deku that, well, he is a better one. So he would have gone down there to get ready to beat up Deku. As Deku told Chaku to go upstairs and to get across or get pretty much, well, behind behind Bakugo and to pretty much try to take him out. Now what he would do is he would try to pretty much, well, not take him out, but take down Ida, and he would try to take down Bakugo as we split up. As Ochaki would have split up and said, what if I can't take down Ida? Him saying that if I take down Bakugo, I'll meet you up there and we can pretty much double tag Ida and try to take him down together. Now as he would tell Ochaki to go up the stairs, she would run and bolt, as Deku would have bolted as well. As Deku would have ran against or ran up near Bakugo, as he would have came across Bakugo, as Bakugo would have thrown an explosion towards Deku, saying that you're not gonna beat me. You're not gonna beat me. Basically saying, you think you're all that, blah blah blah. Basically just overall, pretty much, well, already judging Deku by a book of the cover, thinking that he's a cocky, arrogant person because he's the son of Endeavor. Now that's kind of true. Deku is cocky. Later on in the episode, later on in the video, you will see that Deku is kind of cocky, but he is still a witty and thinks through plan type of person. Now basically, as he starts to dodge more attacks from Bakugo throwing barrages of explosions towards Deku, as Deku eventually dodges most of all of them and throws a huge right hook towards Bakugo, as he hasn't even used his quirk or activated his quirk yet. As he starts a hand-to-hand combat with Bakugo, as he would be trained in Ninjutsu, Karate, and Boxing from pretty much Endeavor and a couple others, him also learning a couple other like Taekwondo and a couple other fighting techniques like that. Now as he would have been moving most of his body, basically fighting Bakugo, using all his fight styles to overpower him, as Bakugo would eventually start to pull out some sort of boxing techniques. In this canon, because of the butterfly effect, you change one thing, everything else changes. Now, pretty much, well, Bakugo would have thrown a huge left hook towards Deku's body, and Deku would have dodged it. Basically, Bakugo throwing another explosion right behind Deku, as he would have tricked Deku into thinking that he was going to throw one punch, pushing Deku about 6 feet away, up into the air, and down to the floor, as he would have rolled about 15 feet across the hallway, and he would have gotten back up. As he would have thrown a huge ice blast towards Bakugo, a huge glacier that would fill the whole would fill up the whole entire hallway, as Bakugo would have blew up a hole in the nearby wall, jumping to the other room, as Deku would have did the same thing, freezing the wall and kicking it in, as he would have walked in there and seen Bakugo there. As he would have started to fight with Bakugo, as he would have started the hand-to-hand combat, Bakugo would have thrown a huge explosion towards Deku's face, pushing him in a nearby pillar. As Deku would have gotten up, grabbing the pillar and going into his ice form giving him a little bit of boost of physical strength, as he would have crushed or pretty much broke the pillar off Bakugo's forehead, as Bakugo would have fell down to the ground, his head starting to bleed profusively, as he would have pulled both pins on both of his arms of his big gauntlets, pushing Deku across the building or into the building, pushing him across about 5 different rooms against another pillar, pretty much almost breaking Deku's ice form, as Deku's ice form would instantly start to heal itself by refreezing his body over. Now Deku would get back up, and him getting ready to shoot a huge bolt of ice, as he would have focused shooting a whole bunch of ice so big, a glacier so big that it would almost fill the entire building or freeze the entire building, even making it so brittle to a point if someone hit the building with a car at full speed, it would crack and destroy the building, as the building would be completely and utterly fragile at this point, as Deku would have gotten up and would have just brushed off this attack and would have ran up a nearby stairs that weren't covered in ice, and he would be able to pass by Bakugo, as Bakugo would be stuck in a little patch of ice against a pillar, as Bakugo would have been passed out by the amount of backlash or whiplash he would have been on his body from pulling both pins at the same time. Now, Deku would have came across these stairs and kicked down the door where Ida was at with the bomb, as Ida would be running around with the bomb away from Ochaku. As Deku would have ran towards Ida, punching him so hard in the nose that it would have broke or pretty much bled his nose as he would have fell down to the ground, as Deku would have grabbed Ida and would have thrown him into a nearby pillar, knocking him out, as Ida would have been knocked out. As Deku would have grabbed the bomb before it fell on the ground at the same time, as he would have thrown Ida into the pillar, and he would have grabbed the bomb before it fell on the ground, and he would have won. As they would have won, heroes winning, villains losing. As Deku would have high-fived Ochaku. Now, basically, after that, we can switch to pretty much, well, Deku and the rest of the students pretty much. After that, we would get switched to pretty much everyone else's match, and they would go exactly the same. Nothing would really change too much. Todoroki would be fighting a lot more harder. So yeah, so basically, what happened is Todoroki and Deku would have gone back home, being escorted back to pretty much the house. As Deku and Todoroki would have been talking to each other and watched some TV actually, and would have been training alongside each other. Eventually, Todoroki would have been talking to Deku, as they would have been very close brothers, as they would have been able to tell each other anything. As Deku would have pretty much asked Todoroki, so what's up with that black-haired girl? As in this canon, pretty much, well, pretty much, what was it? Todoroki said, "What do you mean?" And basically, as he would have gone on about the black-haired girl, aka Momo, was really hot, and you were kind of flirting with her. In this canon, Todoroki was actually flirting with Momo, as he would have a lot more confidence, as Deku would have a lot of confidence and be pretty cocky and, pretty much spit out jokes in and there when they were growing up. So basically, what happened, naturally, Todoroki did get some of that from his brother, and he would become kind of, not cocky, he would have the same personality like in canon, but he would be able to, be funny at times, and push that type of, let's just say, rich boy type personality on people. Now, pretty much, Todoroki said, I don't really know. Basically, Deku saying, well, we're Todorokis, where our family isn't perfect, but we are rich, we are famous, famous family. We also have extremely powerful quirks, and we're most likely going to become really good pro heroes when we grow up. As Todoroki just scoffed, saying, I don't really even want to become a pro hero. Not much, at least. Not too much, at least. I want to prove Father that I'm going to surpass him, be better than him without using his fire perk. Basically, Deku just saying, again with this whole tire vendetta against Dad. I understand he's a total jerk, and he deserves death. Like, he treated us like objects, like a weapon to pass out his own selfish desires into being All Might. But he doesn't really have to control your life, even with him not even being here today. Basically, Endeavor being somewhere else in Japan doing a night shift of patrol. As Deku would have just said that Father is overall was very cruel to us when we were growing up, but you don't have to let him abuse you. You don't have to let him control your whole life. You're your own person, and your quirk is your own thing. Basically, Deku saying your quirk is yours. As Todoroki would have just said, okay, whatever. Basically saying goodnight and walking off, because he would be talking in the kitchen. As he would have walked off, and they would have went to sleep. As Deku would have woken up the next morning, them getting ready for the second day, the third day of the UA. As he would have gone to class, and he would eventually be told by Aizawa that they were going to pretty much, well, no, Aizawa. Basically, getting told by Aizawa that they were going to the USJ with All Might, but All Might wouldn't be there at the time, so they would just drive over there to the bus. As Todoroki and Deku would have been sitting next to each other, as the class would have been asked, or they would be talking about their quirks, as they would have been asking about Deku's quirk, as they would have seen it on the camera, Deku being so powerful at cryokinesis, maybe even more powerful than Todoroki. As Todoroki wouldn't display this, him knowing that Deku's ice abilities were far more powerful than his, but his fire abilities were very weaker than his in terms of, simulations, as Todoroki would barely be using his fire abilities. As Deku's cryokinesis would be far stronger than Todoroki's. Now, pretty much Todoroki would have just, scoffed this off, and just would have been silent the whole ride. as Deku would be making small talk with a certain blonde-haired girl. Not blonde-haired girl. I mean, not blonde-haired girl, brown brunette girl. Basically, he would be flirting with Ochaku, and the ship is going to be Ochaku for this what if. Now, Ochaku does, talk to Deku, and they kind of flirt. They kind of flirt like hard towards each other, even like sparks like flying, like a whole freaking 4th of July attack. Basically, Todoroki seeing this, as Todoroki would have scoffs, and him whispering something, and Deku just saying to shut up, you're nasty, and basically went back to talking to Ochaku. As Todoroki and Deku would have got off the bus alongside everybody else, and they would have been in their hero costumes. So Deku would have gotten his hero costume, and pretty much the rest of the class would have gotten ready and started. Now, pretty much what happened is doing this, the class would have been told to get ready for pretty much, they're testing. Them also meeting up with the Pro Hero 13. Now, 13 would have been talking to everybody, blah, 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 doing this whole entire thing. As eventually, they would have been, pretty much attacked, or they would have been pretty much barraged by the League of Villains, as the League of Villains would have shown up with a bunch of lackeys with quirks, as they would have started to attack Aizawa and 13 and try to take them out. As they would have started to bolt, as 13 would try to get him out of there, but as pretty much Kirigiri would have taken down 13, as the rest of the students would have been split up by the teleportation, as Kirigiri would have teleported everybody to separate places. The Todoroki would have been teleported the same place that can canon, and his story wouldn't have been changed any much, unlike Deku's. Now, Deku would have been, dropped right on the water area where Froppy and Mineta would be, and Deku would have used his ice abilities to freeze the air around him using the same technique Iceman does to pretty much slide or ice around in the air. So basically, he started to just, make an ice wall or ice bridge, kind of like Iceman does when he freezes the air. So pretty much slide on it, kind of like Frozone does. Now, as he would do the same thing by freezing and pretty much making a slide area towards the boat, as he would have landed on the boat safely, as he would have looked around and he would see Todoroki, he would see Mineta and Froppy hide in the boat, as he would have told them to get ready, as he would have freezed over, or he would have grabbed the side of the boat, using it as a anchor, as he would have froze the whole, and I mean the whole top side, like about 6 feet worth of ice in the water, or on the top of the water, freezing it over, making the villains freeze underneath the water, trying to get out of the water, giving them enough time, as Deku would have jumped off the boat alongside Froppy and Mineta, as they would have sprinted to the other side of the water, as Deku would have defrosted the pool just enough for the villains to get some air, since some of them couldn't breathe underwater all the time. So it would just be different little holes, but overall it was kind of like a winter freeze over on the ice. As Deku and Todoroki would have, Deku and Mineta and Ochaku, not Ochaku, oh my gosh, Froppy would have sprinted, or they would have bolted. As we would get switched to pretty much them sitting down, as they would have, not sitting down, but crouching, as they would have been looking over a, pretty much a hallway, trying to figure out what's going on. As some of them would have figured out, or would have seen, the Nomu show up, as the Nomu would have bodied, I mean absolute just gulagged Aizawa. Aizawa would have been out for the count, as All Might would have shown up. As All Might would have started to fight the Nomu hand in hand, going all Goku and Vegeta type fighting style, just going all out, as Deku would use his ice abilities to jump in and freeze the Nomu completely solid. As the Nomu would have fought back, basically Deku being pushed back but being catched by his brother before he can hit the ground. As his brother Todoroki and Deku would have fought together, as they would have started to shoot ice attacks left and right towards pretty much Nomu. As they would start to fight against the Nomu left and right, them shooting a huge ice blast towards the Nomu, as the Nomu's feet would have been frozen solid, as Deku would have been hitting the Nomu with multiple ice blast, a constant ice blast, as it would have been overpowering the Nomu. As the Nomu would have hit a sonic clap, pushing both of them back, pushing them both in unconsciousness, as All Might would have used that little, sliver of time between the Nomu pretty much perishing and pretty much the Nomu being caught in the ice, as All Might would have used a huge bolt of strength, breaking through the Nomu's chest and killing the Nomu instantly, as he would have obliterated the Nomu, pretty much breaking off or disintegrating his top half, taking down the Nomu as hard as possible or as fast as possible. Now, after that, the students would have get a couple days off, and doing that, Deku would have left the house. Todoroki doing the same type of thing, him just visiting his mother during this time as he would have days off, as Deku would have visited, his mother as well with Todoroki, but he would have left halfway through, saying goodbye to his mom, and him going to a nearby cafe to pick up some drinks for him and Todoroki near the, pretty much prayer site, near the I guess hospital where Deku's mother would be, or Todoroki's mother would be. Now he would sit down and he would wait for the drinks to be made, as he would have bumped into Ochaku as he would have went to get the drinks when he was called up to the front counter. As he would have talked to Ochaku, him grabbing his drinks, walking back to the hospital, as he would have been talking to Ochaku, making small talk, and eventually flirted enough, and Ochaku giving him her number, as she would have said goodbye and would have walked off. Basically, Deku, seeing that she was purposely swinging, well, let's just say, that wagon back and forth. But wait, we're not even going to get into that. But basically, pretty much, Deku, got her number, and eventually, let's just say their relationship is going to blossom more than just dating. Now, basically, Deku and pretty much Deku and Todoroki go back home after visiting their mom. And basically after that, the past couple days when they have days off, they just train, visit their mother, and Deku also sets up a date for next weekend with Ochaku. Now during this time, they get switched back to school. As they come back to school, as Azawa introduces the class and tells them that they have to get ready for the sports tournament, as they would have gotten ready for it. Now, Deku and Todoroki would have been trained together, trained their ice abilities. Deku also trained his fire abilities to work in more of like a gun shooter type way. Him being able to shoot fire blasts that are far faster than shells from a helicopter, pretty much a helicopter minigun or a Gatling gun, as he would have been able to shoot like a spirit gun type attack with his fire abilities out of his hands. Him also being able to control his pyrokinesis enough to make constructs or maybe even shoot multiple barrages of fireballs. Now, basically working on more speedy attacks with his fire. Not really big and powerful attacks though. Now, as they would have gotten ready and pretty much them being told about their first, pretty much event on how they're going to be doing this, as they would have been told they were going to do a race, as an obstacle race, as they would have started, as Todoroki would have froze the floor underneath him, leaving his brother behind, them both agreeing that it was going to be man for himself, every man for himself, as he would have started to pretty much, bolt it, as Deku would have pretty much rushed it, as he would have started to pretty much, burn through the ice, as he would have broken through the ice pretty quickly, faster than anybody else, as he would have quickly followed after his brother, as his brother would have froze the giant zero pointer on a tilt, as it would have crushed or went over Tetsu and Kirishima, as he would have both blasted through it alongside Deku, also using his ice form to break through it as well, as he would have broke through it, as he would have bolted off, as he would have started to sprint it and pretty much book it, as he would have started to go after his brother, him using the same type of technique that his brother uses to move faster, as in skating or using ice, as he would have used the same type of technique Iceman does as he starts to freeze the air and starts to frozone it, as he would have started to slide and ski all across the place, pretty much passing by Todoroki, pretty much using the same amount of speed, but Deku uses a huge glacier of ice to pretty much torpedo him across the whole ice or Big Cannon way, as they both would have been in first place. But Bakugo wouldn't be let so easily, as Bakugo would have used all of his power to pretty much, be the same speed, pretty much all three of them being at first place. Now, eventually, Deku would use a lot of his powers and just wouldn't care as he would freeze over the whole mine area, him passing by Todoroki and Bakugo, as he would have started to book it, as he uses all of his ice abilities to glacier him again all the way to the finish line, as Todoroki would have became second and Bakugo third, as pretty much all three of them would be top three, as Deku would get the headband still, as he would have tried to get on the same team as his brother, as his brother would just say, every man for himself, right? So as he would walk away from his brother, as Deku would have just, sat there, basically waiting for someone else to come across him, as he would have decided to become a one-man team, as he would have asked the referees that was okay, and they said it was okay as long as he doesn't touch the ground. As Deku would have seen this, as he would have made a huge glacier of ice to push himself up into the air, making a huge ice castle in the middle of the stadium. Now, as he would have just sat on the ice castle waiting for someone to come at him, as eventually when the match started, pretty much everybody would try to get up the ice glacier, but Deku would basically constantly be controlling the ice glacier, making it pull out spikes left and right at a certain amount of time between each spike pull out, making it kind of like a huge booby-trapped pillar Deku was sitting on. And it would be as tall or taller than the stadium itself, even the booths. So no one can see him on the top of the pretty much pillar, except for the viewers, as in President Mike and his out. Now, pretty much Deku was just, plopping there. For the whole match, Bakugo and Todoroki would try to get up there, but they would be barraged with a lot of ice attacks from the booby-trapped pillar. But simple, Deku won and no one came at him. So, Deku got an okay score. After that, they would have gone to the weighing room, Bakugo getting angry at Deku, saying that he was going to beat him and his brother, saying that he's going to be better than him. As Deku and Todoroki talk, eventually Deku and Todoroki deciding to, pretty much fight at their own accord, saying every man for himself, and pretty much, let's just say, basically making a wager, pretty much, Deku saying, if I win, you have to ask out Momo, and if I lose, I don't know, basically Todoroki saying, if you lose, you have to do my laundry for a year. Now, basically, Deku says deal, as they both, pretty much, sit down in the waiting room. Eventually, then they told, not them, they would have known for, it was a 1v1, as they would have done the 1v1, as Deku and Todoroki were split up. As Deku would have gone up against the Micro Quirk guy, same as in canon, as Deku would be, taught about how pretty much the burn on his hand looks like pretty much blah blah blah. And basically, the Shadow Quirk guy, he just overall just messes with Deku. As Deku eventually just gets sick and tired of it, and he knows about his psychic abilities, as he was told about it from Tanjiro, not Tanjiro, but I don't remember his name. The tail quirk guy, like the worst quirk ever, just a tail. Like, come on. But overall, yeah, he would tell Deku still about, pretty much the purple-haired kid's power, as Deku would have gotten ready, as they would have been all told to go the fight, as Deku would have just brushed off the smack talk and would have just frozen the kid from the neck down solid, as he would have been pretty much immobilized, as the fight would be over. For pretty much the next fight, Deku would go up against Denki, surprisingly, as Denki would have tried to hit Deku with an electric attack, but Deku would absorb the electric attack and redirect it with his fire or pyrokinesis, hitting pretty much Denki with the same amount of electricity, pushing him back out of the ring. Now, for the other matches, Todoroki would have won still in all the other matches. Eventually, when Ochaku pretty much got hit by Bakugo, Deku didn't really like that, as he wanted to fight Bakugo. as Bakugo would have completely obliterated or brutally beat the absolute dog doo-doo out of Ochaku. That could not really like this since he was going to date Ochaku, or he was about to date Ochaku after this week. Now, after this, Deku would have had a burning rage and wanting to fight Bakugo, wasn't really caring for his brother at this point. Now, his brother and him would have been paired up against each other, and the audience would be, crazy. Going like the Todoroki brothers going at it. Basically, Azawa and President Mike seeing how this fight would even play out, since they are brothers, but they have the same amount of power in terms of their quirks and they're both separate ways. Now, they would have both came up against each other, and Deku and Todoroki would have agreed to go all out for this, as Deku would have somewhat convinced his brother to, well, embrace the fire, to let everything out, to use his complete and utter strength, everything he has. Deku doing the same thing as well. Now, as they would have both, gotten ready for the fight, as they would have been told to go. As Deku would have used off the bat, both of them would have used a huge ice pillar or huge ice glacier to barrage the other, as they would have both ran up the ice glacier, them coming against each other by a big, pretty much clash, as they would have hit each other with both equal amounts of fire attack, as they would have started to hit each other with the same type of techniques, as they would have started to fight each other on a big ice pillar or ice pretty much glacier, as they would have started to punch each other left and right, pretty much doing kind of like, let's say, kind of like firebender type of techniques, as they would have started to hit each other left and right, as they would have started to firebend towards each other, pretty much kind of like how Aang and pretty much Zero, don't remember his name, Zaru, I don't remember his name, the son of the Fire Lord in, what was it, Avatar, as they would have started to fight each other, firebending each other, as Deku would eventually be barraging Deku with so much, I don't know, Deku would have been barraging Todoroki with so much fire attacks, as in Bakugo would have been seeing this being, extremely surprised in how fast he was shooting those fire blasts, as Todoroki would have been overwhelmed by all the fire, as Todoroki would have just tried to stop it and keep his distance, as he would have made a huge ice wall separating both of them, as Deku would have gone into his ice form, him breaking or punching the ice wall completely, and the ice wall is about as thick as a vault door, and a vault door is about, like, let's say a 6-inch thick steel door, probably like a 7 or 8-inch steel door that's thick as hell. Basically, what happened is Deku would have started to punch the ice, and he would have broken with about 2 solid punches, as he would have started to pretty much bolt right towards Todoroki, as Todoroki would have made a Sub-Zero move, as he would have made an ice clone right before Deku hit the ice clone. He would have seen that Todoroki dipped, as Todoroki would appear behind Deku, hitting him with a huge blast of fire from his other side, pushing Deku into the ground and even melting the glaciers they were fighting on top of. As Deku would have gotten up, him looking for Todoroki and using a Kamehameha type move or movement, shooting a huge ice glacier. Like, I mean a huge ice blast mixed with electricity fire as well, making a huge blast of energy. As Todoroki would have also at the same time used his awakening move, activating his fire quirk, as they would have gone all out. As, cement block or pretty much boulder and cement block, I don't remember his name, as he would have tried to stop the fight, as he would have hit 3 pillars, but those pillars did not matter. Those concrete walls did not matter. The power they were unleashing against each other, they were going god level. I mean Omega level, like Earth extension power, just focused on one movement. If they did this and like not focused on a specific target, they would have killed everybody in the stadium. The first, pretty much, what would happen is it would cause a huge explosion. Cinder block would have made a huge pretty much construct of pretty much a cinder or concrete over them, making a huge dome of concrete over them, trying to contain the explosion, not to kill everybody in the, stadium, as he would have used all of his power to try to contain it. As something would have happened, as they would have been hitting each other with this fire attack, as when the smoke was about to clear, as they were about to finish their attack, as they would have heard, as they would have felt something between them, as they would have been glitching in and out of their in and out of their minds, as they would have gone into like an astral form type of move, as they would have seen each other through their own eyes, as they would have seen each other through their eyes, like they would have been sharing each other's minds. It would be the trippiest, pretty much, feeling either of them would have ever felt in their life. As Deku would be overwhelmed, as same as Todoroki, as he would have been confused and overall distraught on how they were being able to do this, as their powers would have been able to link onto each other for a quick second, as a bolt of lightning would have been able to make a connection between each other, as they would have looked down and they would have seen a bolt of lightning, like a chain of lightning or a line of light connecting each of them together, as they would have felt like gods, like they could do anything, like the power of the world was at their fingertips, like they could do what they ever wanted to do in their life, as they would have been filled with extreme power, as both of them would have had each other's powers plus their own equally throughout both of them, like the Von Struckers in the Marvel Universe, aka they could combine their quirks to become godlike entities because their power would be so strong. But the power would quickly fade away in about a minute, as they would have passed out, both of them being knocked out the ring, but Deku, since he was slightly conscious for longer before he went or passed out, he would make an ice pillar behind him, stopping him from getting out of the ring, and Todoroki falling out of the ring. After that, pretty much, Deku and Todoroki made a huge fight, pretty much Endeavor being super excited and proud for the first time from both of his sons, especially Deku for some reason. Him knowing that they were both incredibly strong, and him being incredibly, pretty much proud of both of them, and that their power was so strong. Now, after this, pretty much, Deku would have moved on to the last round against Bakugo. As Deku would have gotten up from, recovery go, being able to switch back to consciousness, the burn marks on his body, mainly being on his same left hand where his burn mark from the boiling hot water his mother poured on him and his brother were at. As Deku would have just brushed it off, him not having really big marks or anything, him having some bruises then in there, but nothing too much. As Deku would have gotten into the match and would have started to fight against Bakugo, as he would have let it Bakugo, and he would have bolted towards Bakugo at full speed. I mean, he didn't care. He bolted towards Bakugo at full speed, just booked at the dude. As Deku would have booked towards Bakugo dodging the first attack, and Deku would have froze Bakugo's legs, punching him left and right over and over and over and over and over again, Batman style. I mean, Jason Todd, Joker beating Jason Todd style. He was beating gallons of blood out of Bakugo. The fight going so one-sided to a point where they had to jump in physically, instead of Block having to jump in and stop both of them. As Bakugo would have been beaten to a bloody pulp. So he would have been, let's just say, beat up. It's so simple. Bakugo was out for the count. He was dead. He was gone. So, after that, Deku would have won first place, Bakugo being second place, and Todoroki being third place. Now, doing this, the League of Villains would have seen this, seeing that Deku was extremely brutal with his attack, as Deku's power was going out of control, as he was, in his ice form, punching Bakugo left and right in the face, almost killing the guy. because he was so angry that he just brutally beat the brakes off of, well, Bakugo. And doing this, Deku would have just, made first place, but he would be scolded by Aizawa. But other than that, he did get first place. Some of the hero courses didn't want him after the whole brutal attack he did on Bakugo, but the majority of the bigger ones still wanted him, including Deku's father. Now, doing this, after that, we get switched to everybody else doing their thing and basically going back home after the day of the sports tournament was over. Doing this, Endeavor would have, pretty much, Endeavor would have been proud of both of his children, as he both, for the first time in ever, he would have been nice to them, as he would have taken them out to a restaurant, as they would have eaten there, and they would have talked like a family. Them also being acquainted by their sister, and also their other brother, but not Dabi, as in Dabi wouldn't be there. So basically, they would be talking, and they would just be a silent type of family. Endeavor talking to Daku and Todoroki, saying that he was proud of them for the first time, as Deku would have been somewhat, for some reason, he would feel like he completed something, like he needed his validation, like something was missing, and he finally got it. But Deku just brushed it off, him not really wanting to accept that he actually wanted his father's validation, but he just wanted to brush it off. Not doing this, Todoroki and Deku went to wash their hands, them talking to each other in the restroom, saying, "Why is father doing this now?" Basically, Deku saying maybe he's actually proud of us. As Todoroki would have said, that's nonsense. Of course he's not proud of us. He treated our brothers and sisters. He treated our brothers and our sister like trash most of our lives. Now, Deku would have said, our sister is still kind of loyal to him. And even though he is a sick person, he is, only using us for his sick, selfish game to destroy or surpass All Might. We are still his son, and he is still our father. As Todoroki would have been confused, saying, "What are you saying? We should forgive him?" As Deku says, "No, we shouldn't forgive him, but we should give him a chance." As Todoroki starts to scoff and says, "I thought you were different. You're my brother. We're supposed to be in the same thing." And him also saying, "I can't believe you." As he would have left the bathroom, shutting the door, or slamming the door, not really looking at Deku, and just cussing him out a little bit before he left the room, or before he left the restroom. As Deku would have sat there, or stand there over the sink, him being confused on what he was trying to say. As a couple of days later, Deku would have made a choice, both of them not really having a choice, as they both would have been told to go for the hero agency Endeavor was in. So Endeavor's hero agency with Deku and Todoroki, they would have gone the same. During this time, doing the pretty much sponsorships or the internships, Deku and Todoroki, since they're brothers, they would have gone on the internships with Deku. No, Todoroki. As he would have gotten an internship with Todoroki, and they would have both gone on patrol with their father, like in canon. As they would have been in the pretty much city, as they would have been walking down the hall, as since Deku wouldn't be calling Todoroki, Deku wouldn't be going to save Ida. But for continuity's sake, I still need Ida alive. So what would happen before Ida would die, or would be killed by Slade, pretty much Endeavor and Deku and Todoroki would have gone on a different detour, them coming across the pretty much alleyway where Slade was, or where pretty much the hero killer Stain was. Now Stain was about to stab Ida and kill him, as Endeavor would have jumped in and shoot a huge blast of fire towards Stain, as Stain would have been pushed into a nearby trash can or garbage can, as he would have thrown a shuriken towards Endeavor, hitting Endeavor's arm through his suit and him pretty much having some sort of string on the knife, as he would have pulled the knife towards him, licking the blood and pretty much making Endeavor fall onto the ground. As somehow it would have also hit Todoroki as well, since Todoroki would be sitting or standing right behind his father, as it would have slid or pretty much glazed Todoroki's cheek, as Todoroki and Endeavor would have been both on the down in the count, as the other pro hero and Daku would have been fighting, as the other pro hero would have been easily taken down by one single jab to the throat by Stain, as Stain and Deku would be the last ones fighting. As Deku would have been fighting against Stain, dodging more and more attacks, as he would have been hitting more and more punches and jabs towards Stain. As he would eventually be overpowering Stain in terms of just physical prowess and also speed, as he would have been trained in a lot of martial arts, including his brother also being trained in martial arts in this canon, him being also trained in Taekwondo, Karate, and Ninjutsu. But Deku also knowing Taekwondo, Karate, and Jiu-Jitsu, boxing, slap boxing, and Taekwondo. So Deku was very skilled in, fighting. As Deku would start to dodge more and more attacks, eventually him overpowering a Stain, as Stain would have been able to stab Deku about to lick his blood. As Deku would have used a huge, and I mean a huge level of ice, basically freezing Stain solid before he can even lick the blade, as Stain would have been frozen solid and stuck in that position. As Endeavor and everybody else would have came back and would have been able to get their body back, as well, Endeavor would have been incredibly proud of his, second twin son. Basically, after that, we would see that, pretty much they would have put Stain in custody. Endeavor taking the, pretty much props, because he does know his sons do not have a hero license yet. So yeah, he had to protect them. So pretty much he took the credit for taking down Stain, the hero killer. And after that, we get switched to back to UA after pretty much everything happened. As everybody else would be talking, blah, blah, eventually them being told about the summer training camp. During this time, Azawa would have been telling them about the testing or the pretty much training they were going to do to get themselves ready for this. So basically doing this, as they would have been doing the training to, get into the summer training camp for, Hero Academy. Basically what would happen is Deku would have gotten ready for, the training, as they would have been trained pretty much similar as in canon, but eventually their 1v1s would have came up, them going up against the pro heroes. Now Deku would have still gone up against All Might with Bakugo actually in this canon. Now Deku and Bakugo's relationship should be okay for the story. So basically, doing this, pretty much Deku and Bakugo are about to go at it. As they start to book it, and he starts to go up against pretty much, as he starts to go against All Might. As Deku uses his pretty much cryokinesis to stay at the far to pretty much hit All Might from afar. As he also use ice shurikens and stuff like that to hit All Might from afar. As All Might is dodging and pretty much taking and tanking these hits, as for a solid 15 to 20 minutes, he starts to pretty much ragdoll Bakugo and Todoroki around, ragdoll Bakugo and Deku around like they're nothing. Just slapping them left and right like a little bit, a couple bit. Pretty simple. He just dogs them all. So he takes them all down. He slaps them all down. For myself, he takes them all down. He slaps them all down. He just overall wipes the floor with Bakugo and Deku. Now eventually Deku does have enough, and he uses most of all of his power in a short glimpse of power. As Bakugo and Deku are on the ground together, they're about to get taken down by All Might with one last blow, the Detroit Smash, as Deku uses it to make a huge ice dome around him and Bakugo, as he shoots a huge ice pillar out of the ice dome out of nowhere, literally hitting the weak point where All Might has and hitting All Might in a nearby truck, knocking him out. As Deku was surprised on how that worked. Now he grabs Bakugo because Bakugo's unconscious and runs out of the threshold to win, and he wins. So pretty much everybody's surprised on how Deku was able to take down All Might in such a fast and tricky way with the ice dome and pretty much ice pillar coming out of the ice dome out of nowhere, incredibly fast actually, only having about 3 frames on the camera of the speed. Now, so after that, pretty much Todoroki's very impressed by his brother. Now after this, everybody does the same type of techniques, pretty much, was it fights like that. So it goes similarly the same. And eventually, well, the group is, selected, but the people that did fail are still able to go to the, training camp, but they're just doing extra work. So after that, everybody's told, get ready, and Deku and Todoroki go to the mall alongside Ochaku as Deku this weekend, or the weekend before pretty much the, training for the, pretty much summer camp. He was able to go on that date with Ochaku, and he did hit it off, and they are now dating. So Deku and Ochaku and Todoroki, since Todoroki did lose, he did ask out Momo during this weekend, and they had a double date for their first date for each of them. So yeah, so Momo and Ochaku are dating Deku and Todoroki. So pretty much Deku pretty much gets ready and pretty much goes on a shopping spree with Ochaku and him to get ready for the, pretty much camping and stuff like that, and for the long trip, or the long, summer camp thing, alongside Todoroki doing the same thing with Momo. As they do this, eventually we get skipped to them getting out of the mall, since Deku would, or Deku or Chaku would be near Deku's arm like all the time, them being inseparable with each other in the mall. That means Shiragaki, pretty much Shiragaki or Shigaraki wouldn't be able to get towards Deku. Now, when they were leaving, Deku did forget his phone in one of the, pretty much, well, would have forgot his phone. His phones, or would have forgot his phone, his main phone, in one of the pretty much, well, shopping or shoe stores they were going, because Deku wanted to get some hiking boots. Now Deku goes into the shop. He finds his phone at the front desk, and pretty much he walks out as he gets, pretty much he comes across a confrontation with Shigaraki. Shigaraki still does pretty much, well, intimidate him, saying if you scream, I'll kill you just by one touch of my hand. As he tells Deku what he needs to know, that hero society and villain society isn't too bad, or isn't too, inseparable from each other. Basically, him leaving and saying, if you do anything in the next minute I leave, I'll kill you. As he runs off, Deku getting up, trying to track him down, but seeing that he's long gone. As Deku just walks off, and not telling his girlfriend or his brother about what happened. As they get driven back home, and Deku drops off with Chaku and kisses her goodbye. Now basically, or kisses her goodnight, I guess. Basically, after that, they get ready for the summer camp. As summer camp begins, Deku and Todoroki, they do the same thing, and canonly the story does go similarly. Now, pretty much the Wawa Pussycats do introduce themselves, and they do still throw them in that whole situation where fighting the forest creatures. As they all start to fight against the forest creatures, as Deku uses his ice ability to freeze most of them and just overall speed blitz all of it, including Todoroki doing the same type of technique or same type of move. As they have to bolt through everything, eventually them getting past everybody, and eventually they come across, well, the place, as they get there about a half an hour before anybody else. As they sit and they wait there, pretty much a couple of the teachers show up, and they all get given their meals. As they all get told that you're gonna have to, from now on, after this meal we give you, you're gonna have to cook your own. And pretty much everybody, accepts that. Now doing that, Deku does meet up with pretty much, well, Kendo, I don't remember his name, but I'll put a picture up right here. But other than that, basically, yeah, so basically, well, Shindo, I'll put his name and his picture up right here. But basically, what would happen is doing this, pretty much, well, Deku would have tried to make a friend with him. He would still being punched in the nards by him. And doing that, basically, they eat, they do the same thing, and they go sleep that night. Now, Deku does bring Kendo or Shinso or the water court kid, I'm just gonna call him the kid some food. And basically, well, what happens is they do, take a shower that night in the steamer room, as Menendez don't trust the peep, but the kid stops him, kicking him down, and Deku is able to catch him by his head before he, falls and eat his face. And, basically booty claps him in the face. But basically what happened is, well, Deku looks up and smiles at the kid, gives him a thumbs up, and throws Menendez down to the ground and just walks off. As Deku tells Mineta not to do that ever again, or he's gonna beat him up, since, well, Ochako's on the other side of the door, other side of the wall. He doesn't want him peeping on his girlfriend, especially especially Todoroki also saying the same type of thing. As they sit down in the steamer, they just clean themselves off. As after that, they go to sleep. Deku is able to save the kid, because the kid does still, like in canon, over fall over, as Deku still does, catch him. He does give him back to one of the members of the Wild Wild Pussycats, aka I think his aunt, as pretty much she just, tells Deku thank you, and pretty much after that Deku just walks off. After that, Deku goes back to pretty much so after that, Deku would have just gone to sleep at night, and the next night they would have gotten ready for the scare techniques they're gonna do, and this would be the night where something very different would have happened. Something starting a new reckoning with Deku. Now what happened is, doing this, Deku would have, pretty much Deku would have gone on the scaring thing with everybody else, him being split up from his brother, as they would have gone the same, type of things, as they would have eventually been attacked by the League of Villains. League of Villains would eventually attack them, and they would eventually, or Deku would have came across Muscular, as he would have tried to talk to the kid. As he would have seen Muscular throwing a huge punch towards Deku, and Deku would have dodged it, throwing a huge cryo blast towards Muscular's muscles, as it would have pushed Muscular back. As Muscular would have started to barrage Deku with a lot of punches, as Deku used most of his cryokinesis to try to block them, but nothing would be working too much. Eventually, Deku being overpowered, about to, pass out or be killed, but eventually, out of nowhere, Deku would have used some sort of secret hidden power, as it would combine his pyrokinesis and his ice abilities to make a giant kind of hydro blast, basically shooting a huge amount of water, hydro blast, that would be able to get underneath pretty much Muscular's muscle fibers, as it would have froze the water or hydro blast halfway through, making a huge stab into pretty much Muscular's body muscles, as his muscles will be cut in two, as his muscles will be start to spasm, as the ice would have been like dry ice levels of freeze, like instant frostbite. So Muscular would have started to agonizing pain. He would start to yell out in pain, as Deku would eventually knock him out with a swift kick to the forehead, as he would be in his ice form halfway through the fight to keep up his durability, to stop him from, dying from getting a solid punch from, Muscular. So yeah, so pretty much after that, Deku just left, taking the kid and bouncing, as he would have came across Azawa, giving the kid to Azawa, him running off, as he would still be in his ice form, as he would have started to book it. As he would start to book to it, or Bucket, he would eventually come to the, pretty much base or pretty much the sleeping house, as he would have seen the Wild Wild Pussycats fight Spinner, Magnet, and pretty much a couple others. Dobby, like in canon, would still fight Aizawa, and Dobby would come across Deku in the forest. As he would have noticed Deku, him scoffing and saying, "It's been a long time." And basically, Deku saying, "What do you mean? I don't even know you, man." Deku trying to realize who this was, trying to remember who this was, as he would have looked closer and closer, trying to figure out who it was, going through all of his memories. For him, for a second, saying, "It can't be." But out of nowhere, Twice would have came behind Deku and knock him out. As Twice would have said, "What was that all about?" As pretty much Todoroki says, as Dobby says, "Nothing. Let's grab him and go." As since in this canon, Deku would be first place, it would be a lot more, or would have shown to be more brutal than a Bakugo on camera or on the sports festival, as Deku would have been picked by the League of Villains to be captured and try to be negotiated to be on the League of Villains, to be on the League of Villains. So instead of Bakugo being captured, it would have been Deku, as Todoroki in this game would have tried to fight against him finding out before they would have left, him trying to fight back and get his brother, as he would have used a huge amount of his ice powers and his fire abilities to try to get his brother, but they would have been able to leave, as Todoroki would have yelled at himself, saying, how did they get him? How could I be so weak? Him blaming himself. But after that, we would get switched to a couple days later, as everybody would be thinking about what's going on in League of Villains, capturing Deku, and pretty much as Todoroki being locked up in his room, him being comforted by his girlfriend Momo, but Momo trying to comfort him, and that him just being overall, depressed, and how he just let his brother be taken by the League of Villains. Him assuming the worst, him thinking his brother's dead. Now, we get switched to Deku's perspective. Deku's locked up in the same type of room, the same type of area, or pretty much, seat where Bakugo is, as he's underneath a pretty much a fan. As he starts to use his pyrokinesis, as he sees that he's extremely hot. As he's in a heater room, and it's a room specifically designed to nullify cryokinesis-like powers. As pretty much, the moisture in the air is very thin in this room, and also Deku is like covered in sweat, like he's heating up, like he can't function, like he's having he's on the edge of having a heat stroke. That's how much heat they're pumping into this room, and he starts to try to negotiate with Deku, try to ask him if he wants to be on the League of Villains, and tries to convince him. As Deku tries to tell them no, as pretty much what would happen is, Deku was trying to get up and try to, fight back, but eventually he would be too weak. And I'm going to leave it off here, guys. Now, this is a movie. I was going to finish it in one take, but why not leave it on a cliffhanger? Come back for episode 2 to see what happens to Deku. Deku finally unlocks that secret power he has with his brother, as in the Von Struckers had in the Marvel Comics. And come back to see how the relationship between him and Ochaku is going to end. Now, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Hope you guys come back for episode 2 of this 7K sub special. And see you guys later. Deuces.